in the interest of time, we will start our reflection, our discussion. And I have here Hala with us, the regional director of CIHA, who will just give us a remark and a highlight of reflection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm quite happy to be with you today here, and happy International Women's Day. Please do share with us your interventions and the events that you are organizing around these remarkable occasions. I think you're going to see CIHA also has organized something very small, but of course we take pride of the amazing intervention that you organize in different parts of the region. I have to commend Susan for this brilliant idea that we come together and we start discussing what have we accomplished and to what extent we manage to take advantage of this fantastic Southern-based consortium. Hopefully down the road, we will be able to replicate this experience, because in my view, it has been a success by all means in terms of our ability to work together, to learn from each other, and to share information with each other. And we want to, kind of, remind ourselves that it's very, very important to continue to do that, because as feminist groups, none of us can exist alone. We get our strength from each other's. And that's very, very important to take advantage of and to continue to capitalize on and think, constantly keep thinking that way, that, this idea that, people, they are constantly fixated on, competitions, and that's an obsolete ways of thinking. Feminist institutions has to rely on each other. Our solidarity, our capacity, to work together is what will actually contribute to our sustainability and to our presence. If we isolate ourselves from each other, then that means, this is a death sentence. If we decided that we're going to go alone, we're not going to collaborate with each other, that means eventually we're going to be isolated from the movement, we're going to be isolated from each other's, and it's going to be really difficult for us to continue to exist. And this is applicable at the country level and at the regional level, and at the broader southern, part of the hemisphere, because we all know that issues of resources and access to resources, it's becoming very, very complicated and very difficult. And we are entering into a difficult phase, I would say in the coming years. We are seeing, the deterioration in economies across the board, increased poverty of women. The post-COVID era has, ramifications, has, it's kind of very clearly manifesting in front of our eyes. Extreme poverty, women are faced with more challenges, backlash, anti-rights narrative and discourse all over. All these elements requires more solidarity and more commitments from our side. And so an opportunity like We Cannot Wait, it's something very, very important to utilize, to address those constant challenges that confront us regularly. And the nice thing about We Cannot Wait, that it's it's emphasizing advocacy. And advocacy is such a broad concept. It's our ability to push back. It's about our ability to get organized, to address policies and laws, and to focus on and to monitor, the anti-rights policies, and to monitor, the backlash that we are experiencing, to undertake more research and organize more campaigns, whether in person or on social media, and to take our engagements and our activity into communities that are usually has not been part of the women movements, and spread awareness and spread a better understanding of the feminist movement's agenda. And I really appreciate the creativity and the creative methods in terms of your constant attempts to stress the presence of women in public spaces, and so on. Because as much as the direct service provisions, are critical and important, the issue of sustainability of service provision, it's constantly becoming a challenge, so enhancing and supporting women to become more aware, to demand, more structural service provision that are built in, into different levels of governance institutions is very, very important. And this comes through the advocacy and through the work we're doing. The other thing that I feel is very, very important is the issue of collective care. And I like to speak about collective care way more than speaking about self-care. Because self-care, I feel it's a very Western concept, But collective care is a concept that's built in our own culture as African women. Our ability to take care of each other and to bond, with each other, and to extend support to each other, and hold hands of each other and lift each other's. And this is why, I want to stress that as well, taking that forward with us in our, implementations, in our design and planning for the coming, more or less close to 2 years of WCW, is to stress the concept of collective care and inclusion, and to make sure that everyone is part of our interventions and no one is left behind. Because our core argument is this project that, we're not going to exclude women, regardless of their status, regardless of their identity, women with disabilities, minority women, poor women, elites women, students, young women, any sort of representations, we are going to encourage, that women come together, sex workers, women, any form of association that women come together, and decide to express themselves and say, this is who we are, and we have interests and we have challenges, and we would like to bring that to the broader spectrum of the movement. This project should cater for. This project is, and all of us as feminist institutions, this is how we should be. We are, because we experience discrimination, we live through discrimination, so we cannot internalize the discrimination of the patriarchal institutions and succumb to, the ways of thinking of the patriarchal institution and try to undermine each other's. All those are refugees, we should disregard them.
Those are minorities. They are not like us. Those are women with disabilities. No, we should not bring them to the women movements, and so on. So I would like us to emphasize the issue of inclusivity and to demonstrate it. And inclusivity that is not one side. You cannot go to the easy part and say, okay, I have women with disability. How many women with disability you have in our platforms, and how many minority women we have in our platforms, and how many IDPs women, how many women, of sexual minorities that we have in our platform. So it's very, very important to demonstrate that in WCW and to show that, that those are not, our organizations are not elite women organizations. Our organizations are feminist organizations. And, that means a lot. That means that everyone, all the women, different representations are part of the work we're doing. That's very, very important thing. The other issue that I would like to stress, and I don't see quite visible, is the issue of women rights defenders and women at the front line. Our agenda are political agenda, and our agenda are national agenda. Women issues are not peripheral issues. They are not issues that are sidelined. They are at the heart of the political agenda. So those women who are at the front line, fighting for women's rights, fighting for democracy, fighting for inclusivity, they are part of our movements. And we should extend support and work with human rights defenders and work with women who are trying to influence policy and influence change in our society towards democracy. And that might be hard in many of our setups, but I think it's very important to challenge ourselves and understand the principles of safety and security, and how can we protect ourselves, and teach also those women how can they protect themselves as well. And those are really very important elements that we take pride of on WCW, and we spoke about it. Our theory of change is based on the fact that that this project should be capable of influencing the dynamics of the movements in each country, and to rise above the stereotypes that women cannot work together or cannot accomplish change together. Lastly, it's very important to observe the issue of girls and young women, and to also reflect on it. And it has to be clearly demonstrated in our projects planning, our projects interventions, to what extent we are committed, to the continuity within the women movement. If we are not going to work with the younger generation, turn into a decaying movement, and then, this river, of development, it will cut short. So the investment on girls, the investments on young women of different backgrounds, by the way, not only the elites, young women who has access to internships in feminist organizations, no, the young women who are part of Women Street Vendors Association. We have to encourage these concepts across the board. Every intervention we ask them, do you have young women part of it? Part of your structure? Do you work with girls? What are you doing to enable them? Our intervention should enable girls. This is why we talked in this project about the occupation, women occupying public spaces, women playing sports, women engage in art, you know, and be present and have a say, you know, in, and then finally, you know, the understanding of the economic marginalization, economic alienation, and poverty, a lack of access to resources. And I think our work on family law, because family law, you know, and the you know, the customary laws that dictates, you know, the relationship, you know, the gender relationship, as you all know, you are all gender experts, you know, it is constructed and built by patriarchal institutions. And so it's extremely, it became, you know, it's built around blocking women from accessing equitable resources. And this is why the issue of family law is a very sensitive issue across the board. Even for countries like Ethiopia, who made significant progress, it's still the implementation of the family law is highly problematic, you know, in terms of access to inheritance, access to generational wealth, access to any type of window that will enable women to have access to resources in an equitable way. Beyond the family law, because the family law, it also reflects and the overall, you know, societal practices, you know. So you would see the overall structure, it's designed that women will not have access to resources. And we are still struggling to grow, you know, economically, because you know, the system is suppressing us. I have seen women who were street vendors and market vendors for selling by the side of the road for 30 years. Why? Then a man will be doing this work in 2-3 years. Eventually, they will grow and they will have a shop, you know. So the network, you know, of support, women, they don't have, because we don't have an extension, you know, in the formal economic institutions, because the banks still are very disregarding of us, because the national budgets are not enabling of us, and so on. And this is one of the things that we are missing, you know, is your analysis and critique, you know, of the gender budgeting in your countries. And I'm not talking about documents. You know, documents are always very nice, you know, but I'm talking about practice, you know. And this is a very important area of advocacy, you know, is to interrogate, you know, the national and local government's policies, and advocate for a real implementations and reflections of resource allocations, social protections. I'm often quite surprised that to what extent the women organizations are not actually emphasizing or aware of how critical and important this issue, you know, in terms of, you know, concepts of safety networks, you know, because when we talk about substantive quality, it means that we understand very well that we are not standing on a flat ground, you know. The men are here and we are here. So it's not an equal position. So we do need, you know, when governments claim that they have gender policies, they have gender economic policies, we need, you know, this to be shown. And it is the role of the women organizations to speak very loudly about this. You know, do you have subsidies towards girls' educations? Do you have subsidies on sexual and reproductive health rights and access to medications? Does women have subsidies on higher education institutions? And all these elements are really part of our work in WCW. You know, it's such a rich project emphasizing advocacy, you know, and it's a project that enriches the institution and its growth. I really hope that during the remaining period of this project that we take as much as possible advantage to interrogate, you know, policies, to take advantage and undertake advocacy, engage with the broader women movements in its diversity, and to have influence, and also to share your experience, share your research, share your work, share your posters. We want to see that. Share the work that you're doing. You have to be visible for us, because this is the value of this project. Don't hide in your own little corner. We need to see what you're doing, you know, with other women around this region. Very, very important for the learning and for the growth and for repeating this experience as well. I am sorry for talking too much, but this is an area that I'm extremely passionate about. You know, not passionate, but this is what personally what defines me. I'm very dedicated to this, you know, idea of women's equality and rights, you know, and I hope we approach, you know, our work with passion, with commitments. It's such a privilege. I always say it's such a privilege to work as a woman and as a man, you know, to work to support women's equality. That's something that, you know, many people are doing on voluntary basis. So when this is our work, that's a privilege, and we shouldn't take it for granted. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. And I'm going to hand it to Susan.
Thank you very much, Hala, for that elaborate reflection and also key highlights of areas that we need to focus on as well and interrogate as practitioners of gender equality within the region and also within broader global movements on gender equality, family law, child rights, and all other reforms of harmful social practices that inhibits women from attaining equal equality. So at this point, we'll now move to our panelists who will be discussing different components of our main theme, which is focused on enhancing women's rights and within the Horn of Africa for an equitable and inclusive gender equality. And I will call on our first panelist, Ms. Rehema. Rehema is the program lead of MUSAWA, which is a global movement on family law and equality. She will be taking us through investing in women's movement in the region for equitable family law reform and gender equality. So, Rehema, please take us through. Hello, Rehema?
Hello, can you hear me? How much time do I have, Susan?
You have 10 minutes, Rehema.
Oh my gosh. It's very little given what I have. So what I would do, I'm going to suggest, because I was thinking a lot about you know, how we could summarize the reflection in a way that makes sense for the groups that are new to the space, right? Like who are joining us to really learn about what we are doing. So maybe what I can do is just quickly, briefly talk about Musawa, and then I can reflect on what we are sharing about today, specifically what Musawa has been doing for the project. So I have 10 minutes, hoping. I still have 10 minutes. So Musawa is a global movement for equality and justice in the Muslim family. It was founded in 2009 by Sisters in Islam at a global meeting in Malaysia. Sisters in Islam is a national organization in Malaysia, and it was attended by 250 delegates from all over the world, and 28 of those delegates were from Africa. And the idea that brought this group together was these were people who were really, really thinking a lot about, they were concerned about the ways in which Islam was being used to perpetuate discrimination, to justify discrimination against women and girls, especially from the family level, and even into, the laws that govern relations at the family level and within personal relations. And the group came together to really think about a way to create a new knowledge-based discourse that is rooted in Islam, Islamic teachings, and jurisprudence to advocate for equality and justice. And that's how we were born. So Musawa works to, our vision really is to work towards a world in which gender equality, justice, and non-discrimination are embraced as inherent in Islam and reflected in laws and practices. And sometimes people ask, why are you engaging with religion? I think we engage with religion because of obvious reasons. Religion shapes a big part of people's lives. It informs laws and policies. And also because increasingly for the Musawa movement, we were recognizing that there's a growing confrontation between political Islam and human rights and feminisms. And we were finding that a lot of people, so there were like two divides. Those who were, religious leaders, fundamentalists, are not willing to engage or work with women's rights advocates. And those who are working on issues of human rights and feminism, they think that's a Western ideal. And then on the other side, there's a group of, women's rights advocates, feminists, and movements that are working around gender equality that are feeling like they are not able to engage on religion for one reason or another. For Islam particularly, I think there are Muslim women that were feeling that in order for them to choose to be part of the movement that advocates for equality of women and girls, they have to drop their religion. And that's why, for Musawa, we were coming in and saying, those two you don't have to choose either or. So you can, so how we exist because we want to insert women's concerns and voices into processes of a production of religious knowledge, and also on issues related to legal reform in Muslim contexts. And also we want to open a new egalitarian and constructive dialogue between Islamic legal tradition and human rights and feminisms, and create a space where scholars, activists, and decision makers come together to interact and mutually strengthen our common goal, really, of pushing for equality and justice of at the family level, within Muslim context and beyond, because Muslims live in both Muslim majority and Muslim minority contexts. And also some of the question that people ask is really, why family law? Because equality in the family is really the foundation of equality in society. And also because family law is really the biggest, I think studies have shown that family law is the biggest predictor of women's economic empowerment. And we are informed by what we call a Musawa framework for action that really looks at, and so when we were formulating the framework for action, our strategy on how we approach these issues is we ask the question, if justice and equality are values central to Islam, why have women been treated as second-class citizens in Islamic legal tradition and many Muslim societies? And then the other question was that if equality has become inherent to conceptions of justice in modern times, as of course, as we know and recognize, how can it be reflected in family laws that are governing different societies where Muslims live, in Muslim majority and Muslim minority contexts? And of course, and that's how the Musawa framework was, was formulated. I think the one thing I can highlight about the framework quickly is that we want to work on the principles that declare that, of course, Islam can be a source of justice, equality, and fairness and dignity. We want to really show the world that it's possible, change is possible, because many family laws and practices have been unjust and do not respond to the lived realities of women and girls, and also individuals and families. And also, of course, to declare, how we can make that change possible. And so we look at what the Islamic teachings say, what do universal human rights principles say, what do the fundamental rights and constitutional guarantees, have, at the national level, but also the most important element, what are the realities of women and men in the world today? What are the facts, figures, evidence, what is the reality on the ground showing us? Because oftentimes you can have what the laws, policies are saying, what are the human rights principles are saying, but the reality on the ground and the practices are often very different. And so coming from that quick background, also something else I could add is that since 2009, I think Musawa dedicated a lot of time in trying to really study family laws globally, particularly with a focus on Muslim family laws. And we were identifying what are the positive developments, because you can find that you can have, different countries have different, laws on an issue. One country could have legal age of marriage to be 18 plus, and another, in certain contexts, will have, as we will see, you have one that says as long as a girl is mature enough reproductively, and that can be very vague. It can be at 15 when a girl has a period. In that country, they will assume that person is ready to get married. And we also identified 12 principal issues of concern that were coming up in our research. So those issues are summarized, at the time of marriage, during marriage, and at the time of dissolution of a marriage. So when it comes to Musawa and within the We Cannot Wait movement, we've been trying to invest in how we can push for equitable family laws and gender equality for the movement. And how we've done that is really in two ways. So we are taking co-partner within the consortium that is supporting. We work very closely with SIHA and national partners on the project. So we do technical support by strengthening capacities of human rights advocates and organizations, because of course, being the Greater Horn of Africa, there was a great, recognition of the context having a big amount of religious conservatism, violent extremism, and continued politicization of religion. So it was becoming particularly challenging for women's rights groups to really speak out and engage and advocate against these injustices in their own communities, to push for reform. So there was a recognition for Musawa's expertise to come in and support where we can, and also as we learn on the journey, in ways we can support national groups to actually engage on these issues, because we have that expertise on reconciling religion, in this case Islam, and rights, to deal with that resistance from different groups. State actors, some of them are religious authorities and others are governments. And then also the other component of how we've really been supporting the movement within the consortium is really supporting in knowledge building and sharing strategies and building the courage of partners on the issues as they relate to religion and gender, to be able to engage on these issues and also build their movement and strengthen it. And also, of course, we've supported also in organizing and mobilizing national partners and activists within the consortium and beyond to address the issues of discriminatory family laws and issues, especially for Muslim contexts, and to make sure that we are building a movement that actually takes this issue as a priority, and it's bringing it to government policymakers to really have their voices heard. We've done, of course, many activities as a result. We've done research. When we were starting out, we mostly focused on the research component, because baseline research really informs a big amount of advocacy. For any advocacy to be successful, you have to invest in research. So we did a good amount of that. For the project countries, we produced 5 reports. We've done a comparative review. We've done a legislative brief. And each of these reports really, for the reports on, we was assessing the existing laws that govern each of these countries, identifying who are the actors, the laws, the policies and practices that are being prioritized, the challenges and opportunities to be in a better position to strategize with national actors working on this issue. The other component on how we've been able to build the movement, and as you will notice, because Musawa is not, we don't work at the national level, so we don't have specific activities that are like at the national level for each country, but we support national groups, partners within the consortium and beyond that are building at the national level and doing the work on the ground. So the other component of our work that I talked about around building and strengthening capacities, where we've impacted over 100 advocates and activists and women's rights actors within the context, has been around, trainings. Musawa has trainings it offers around to build knowledge on issues related to Islam and gender, and also build courage of advocates, because oftentimes religion is a very sensitive topic. People are not willing to engage. So that's why it's very important that capacitating advocates and different actors is very important to be able to enable them to build their own voices as leaders on these issues that can demand alternative understandings of either Islam as a religion that recognizes equality and justice, but also to highlight where governments are really perpetrating discrimination, because oftentimes government do this and do this in the name of Islam. And then when advocates compare some of the experience of the advocates in other countries, they recognize, oh, it's not really about Islam, it's how governments are using patriarchal interpretations and building their own narratives around these issues. That's the issue. The other thing, I know I'm like 1 minute out of my time, but quickly, maybe what I could talk about is really the work we've been trying to connect the efforts at the national level to regional and international platforms. So providing those linkages for the movements at the regional and international level. So we've done this through, of course, international advocacy work at the UN human rights using UN human rights systems, particularly the CEDAW committee. And why CEDAW? Because Musawa has been, working with advocates globally on this and engaging with CEDAW to be able to hold governments to account, and also to get them to be compliant to treaty obligations, because oftentimes when governments go at that level, they use excuses of like, it's Islam, this is how religion is, we can't engage with that, this is our culture. We've had some of governments use these excuses. And so we are using such a platform, and Musawa is partnering with national groups. We've partnered with South Sudan, we've partnered with consortium partners in South Sudan and Uganda to submit reports. But also as a result of that effort, Musawa has also done what we are calling CEDAW follow-up projects, where we are using the concluding observations from the CEDAW committees that they make to governments and trying to get national groups to actually follow up and see where whether government is following up on these. And these actually, we have these projects going on starting, they started late last year, and they're, going into this year too. So it will be exciting to see how advocates actually following up and trying to see that governments actually do something about the concluding observations. Another platform is really the platform where in regards to creating linkages, we are part of the Africa Family Law Network, where we are recognizing that coming together regionally, build to galvanize our efforts and use that as a vehicle to actually engage at the global level on family law reform through our campaigns, the Campaign for Justice on Muslim Family Laws, and also the Global Campaign for Equality in Family Laws, which really is a more broader campaign that focuses on all family laws beyond just Muslim family laws, is a good platform. And we've been part of partners who have launched these campaigns. And I know some of you on the call have been part of these efforts. So we've been trying to make sure that we push for that. In the interest of time, maybe I could mention one more thing. I think we are also trying to work with partners within the consortium to ensure that we visibilize the lived realities of women living under discriminatory family laws and practices, especially within the region. And what we're doing is we are trying to collect stories, and from those stories, we'll be developing narratives, and we can support make our advocacy cases stronger to be able to push for reform. Because we all, as Hala mentioned, we believe, of course, family law is like really the foundation of equality for women and girls. And in order for us to be able to achieve that, I think Musawa believes it's important that we come together to actually push and engage and be able to achieve that. So collective organizing and building that voice is important. I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much, Rehema, for a very comprehensive and elaborate discussion of the wonderful work that SAWA has been doing, looking at SAWA using research, use of demystifying some of the stereotypes around religion and its effect on women and girls, looking at organizing within using different platforms, looking at also the intergeneration of young women and bringing them onto greater platforms. Also, using spaces at all levels to ensure that questions around family law, questions around guardianship, questions around women and girls' participation evolve, and they are part of the outcome of the different policies that result from these different platforms. So thank you very much, Rehema. At this point, then, I will call on our colleagues from Sudan, Sarah and Mana, who will be discussing for us the impact of war on women's organizing and activism in Sudan. Thank you, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
You hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. How are you? Hello for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for putting this. I'm here on this day. I send my greetings to all the women over the world, especially the women that is stranded in the border, the women that are living and in a very vulnerable situation in displaced camp and refugee camps, the women imprisoned. The women have been violated and sexually violated each minute, each day, each hour in our world. And my special greetings to the Sudanese women who are really suffering after this very harsh and disastrous war have taken place in last April. The woman that is still suffering inside Sudan, even also violating by both parties, by the army and by the support army, RSF. And also my greeting to the woman that is stranded in the borders of the neighboring countries looking to enter to the safe places I'm also send my greetings to Sudanese women that are moving from city to city, avoiding violence, avoiding killing, avoiding everything that taking place in that. My greetings to the women who are working for the women, to the women who are working with the UN, who are working with international organizations, who are working with national organizations. The young women who are working with an emergency room that provided safe a rescue for the women that are fleeing the war from Khartoum and to other cities. War is not in the Khartoum, war in the whole in the Sudan. So it started in Khartoum, the last war started in Khartoum and exported to other cities and being resumed in Kordofan and Darfur. And this is actually now the situation in my country. So I can go, because of the time, I can go for a slide number 1. If you can go there, if you can, for the slides. Yes, following this war, around 10 millions have been displaced. If you visit the UNHCR website, you can find every minute the numbers of displaced and refugee Sudanese people. And this kind of war creating a very serious thing, which is creating a polarization campaign. They tend to divide Sudanese people into the 2 camps. The first camp is the pro-RSF, Rapid Support Force, and the other is with Sudanese Army. And this is very serious things. This why in Damazin last months, there is an organization called Ummahat Sudan, Mothers of Sudan. Those Mothers of Sudan, they're thinking to have this organization to talk with their male relatives, whether there's relative fathers, sons, cousins, who are, some of them are with the army and some of them are with RSF. And also there is a deterioration in the health. You know, most of the hospitals, particularly in Khartoum and Darfur, now they are out of services. The humanitarian assistance is very minimal. So the humanitarian organization, they are complaining that they cannot enter inside the cities because of the war. And because most of the warring parties, they are not allowing this humanitarian assistance to come in. Also, there is dangerous violations has been taken place. One of this is the kidnapping and sexual slavery for the women and girls. And these have been used as the war weapon particularly by the RSF. And I think FIHA has a very comprehensive report on the small girls. They have been sexually abused and enslaved and being transported from Khartoum and to the Darfur, and their families pay such like ransom so as to release them. Also, there is a hate speech at Bravely. The hate speech is there is a cyclical tension, because some say, okay, we need this Sudan to be separated. Those who are living in Darfur, take your Darfur and go away, take your East and go away, because you are not ours, because those who are coming, they are not Sudanese, they are coming from other African countries, and those and you have a lot of ethnical tension and ethnical insultation because of this, because of the war, because of the polarization created by this current war. You know what comes also serious is the arming of the so-called popular resistance. Popular resistance is a call by the army and by the different community entities. They say that it's a high time to protect ourselves, because the army have no any significant, like what was happening now in the Gezira state, that RSF is invading, is start to invade the home, to invade the small villages, and no any significant intervention with the army. So the people start to create some sort of popular resistance. And this popular resistance, there is a camps for women warriors. And those who are creating these camps for the women to be warriors, they ask them to protect their honors, because otherwise you will be, if you don't go to those camps and become a warrior and become and to go for this war, so you will be raped by RSF soldiers. Yes, second slide, please. The second slide, yes, okay. When we're talking about the feminist movement context in Sudan, we can say there is like a breakthrough on different issues. There are some advancement. There is like Sudanese women the whole time they are advocating for legislation reform, because in Sudan, like many African countries, we have this what we call it legal pluralism or parallel legal system, which negatively affect women. So we are for a long time linking with peace process, how women can link with peace process. There is some breakthrough happen because this women start to move towards how not repeating the mistakes or the past mistakes, and how to start to have to put their feet in within the whole process, from the conflict resolution up to peace settlements. And also looking up with influential actors like local authorities, native administrations, and also with the young women initiatives have been formed 2 decades ago. So, and also there is strong advocacy movement on combating sexual and gender-based violence. But although of this breakthrough, there are still challenges facing Sudanese women. Like there is still parallel legal system is still working. And when I was following our colleague Rahma from Musawa, Rahma said a very important thing. She said Musawa now is about to create like a constructive debate that how to link this traditional law or traditional legal system with feminism and with human rights principles. And this is actually what we have, that Sudanese women are badly in need of it, because this is, the parallel legal system put women at risk, because women will be governed by this traditional system, which negatively affect the rights. Slides. Yes. And also there is poor access to the resources. And I think Hala was talking a lot about how women have been sidelined from formulating economic policies, because economic policies, like microeconomic policies, like the foreign debt, what safety network, all these big policies have been built away from the whole the Sudanese people, and particularly for the women. And the public budget as well, because Sudanese women advocating for the gender responsive budget. But all these have been tackled away from women linking up. So still women have a challenges to link up with the whole system, with the poverty reduction, the policies that have been led by the government. So the figure of foreign debt is something confidential up now. No one knows. But who is taking the results? Who is taking the consequences of all this? Definitely women. Definitely who because those policies that have been formulated away from our agenda, we are taking this disadvantage of all these policies, and definitely affecting. This is why when we're talking about poverty, we're talking about women, definitely. Also, women, and for a long time, have been sidelined from the peace process. When we talk about the peace process, we don't mean only peace talks. We talk about the whole process, from the conflict resolution and up to settling peace. You know, in Abuja, in Darfur, the women have been sent at the final round. They have been sent to Abuja at the final round of the talks, and they have been denied, their existence have been denied by both, by the government, by the two parts, by the government and by the armed factions. And they are not being allowed even to be like, what we call it, like observer. Also, the women have been sidelined, and their agenda have been sidelined from Machakos, from the comprehensive peace agreement. You know, because the women, they are not embarked on the process from the beginning. They join on the final round of the process. The second reason, because of the men, those who are designing this peace talks or peace process, they take it as a gender neutrals. They say that we have to bring the peace, and the fruits of this peace will be distributed for the whole, whether they are women or men. So they are taking this like a gender neutrals. Sometimes the selection of the woman that to attend this particular peace talks, sometimes based on ethnical basis, like send some women from four and two from Zagawa and two from Arab, so as to attend these talks for. So they are not taking that this is the peace talks is for the privilege of the whole Sudanese women. And this is why also the agenda of the women's inside the talks is totally different from those men. Because when the women are looking for the power structures that maintain their needs and concern, negotiator men looking for their position. They want to be a minister after this peace settlement. And this is why women, they are not there. Also, while women looking for the resources and fair utilizations and management, men negotiators are looking for money transfer that they can get after signing this peace negotiation or peace talks. I have this slide. Slides. Okay. Now, and during this April conflicts, so as this project, we call it Women in Sudan, cannot wait. We cannot wait. This is why there is a model. There is a new initiatives actually led by the young women. So they want the Nisa to be Giddam. Women should be on front. We cannot wait. This is why we should be on front. So there is young women ladies movement played a great role on these conflict resolution issues, because immediately when the war started in April, there is like different initiatives, particularly on the hosting community cities, because you know the people fled from Khartoum to the nearest cities like Shandi, Atbara, Madani, and then for the other cities. And those cities, they have been formed like what we call it emergency room. And this emergency room composed of a young male and female, but the numbers of female is very big. Sometimes you find in El Gadarif, you find 80% of the emergency room are young female. So those young female, they were doing a great work, although they are not supported by international organization, although they are not supported by the government, although they are not supported, so they depend on the people support. They are taking some support from the people and have like a receptions within the host communities, and then facilitate sheltering for those who are coming. In Shandi, I have contacted. Shandi is a city, is away from Khartoum, like 180 kilometers away to the north from the Khartoum, and there are a lot of young women. I was contacting with them and asked them, how are you working? Because there is like a conservative place where the women that are not actually playing a great role in the public domain. So the young woman told me that she worked day and night, and this is a new thing because and her work is acknowledged, widely acknowledged by her people. And I think they break like these social norms, how women can work in this public domain for a long hours and even in the night. They are preparing especially the women that need facilities of delivery for cesarean, and also for those who have kidney failure. They have arranged dialysis sessions, and those who are suffering from the cancer diseases, they have chemotherapy resources for the cancer. They are preparing this with hospital. They are preparing like a center, like a reception center. They are using schools. They are using boarding houses for university students uh, uh, to accommodate the people that are coming, and they have no money to have flats. Some people have money, so they facilitate flats for them. The these types of intervention current a new pattern of humanitarian intervention and response, because usually humanitarian response around the world is done in a camps. The refugees or displaced people usually being keeping in the camps. But in this war, millions of the people that are not kept in the camps, but they're hosted by the city, by the city people, by the community themselves. So those initiatives creating a new patterns of humanitarian intervention, which have they can serve the people within the hosting communities. And this might constitute a young leader movement that will play or must or would or will play a great role in the conflict resolution, because humanitarian response is a conflict resolution process. So when we find the woman from the first steps of all the peace process that participating in this humanitarian response, so this can guarantee the existence or linking up of the women for the whole process in the future. Slides again. Okay. When we talk about this, it was for the survivors of and the victims of SGBV. This is very challenging because the situation to detect these violations is not an easy, because this is war is in flux inside the cities. So I have contacted with Sulaima Sharif. Sulaima Sharif is the president of Combating Violence Against Women and Girls. It's a government unit, but it's an active unit. They are in charge of collecting the incidents of all SGBV during the conflict context. And I have contacted her. She herself displaced in a White Nile state, and she told me she provided a 29-page a report about the incidents and about the work of the unit. And she said they couldn't document. The last documentation was in November. After that, there is no, because of the cut off the internet for more than 1 month for White Nile, Sennar, Damazin, and for the whole Sudan. Was like cut off of internet because of the internet services. So the latest documents was in November. From the report, there is like, this is a documented report, the documented cases. There are like 136 incidents of sexual violence. But this, according to the report and according to Suleima, it represents only 200 of the actual violation and assault happening in reality. And this is very challenging because, you know, hospital is out of services. No one is trained. Even those women who are working in the humanitarian response, when I ask them how they can deal with this, with raped women or with sexual abused women, they say we cannot deal appropriately. Some we can refer them to the hospital, but the hospital sometimes they cannot accept this case because they actually saying we are only receiving those wounded people or this what they call it emergency. This is why most of the cases have taken place during invasion of homes by RSF soldiers. You know, RSF soldiers invaded all, like 80% of them, Khartoum homes, and all these incidents taking place during this invasion of the people's home. And also survivors and victims are very young. Their age is ranging between 9 years and up to 30 years. And also displacement of those young women and girls put more pressure on them because of the natural ability to be resilient, you know, because those raped women or girls, or actually this sexual abuse, they moving from city to city. They fled Khartoum, they come to Madani and Jazeera, and after RSF attacked Jazeera, they moved to Kassala, and you can imagine the situation that the workers and the situation of the rescuers that work in. This is why this is very minimal. 136 other have been stated by the report is 2% of the whole violation and assaults happening or taking place during this period. During this, there is a lot of initiatives have been formed inside Sudan and outside Sudan, in diaspora, by displaced women in Cairo, in Kenya, in Egypt, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Eritrea. There is a lot of income in Uganda. There is a lot of initiatives formed by the Sudanese women. There is one of the initiatives, the women against war. And those women against war, they are talking, it's a collection of women from different background, from different educational background, from different positions. They are from who are living in Sudan, inside Sudan, and in diaspora, in the refugees camps, and in the neighboring countries, and even those are living in Europe and America. So all this is, they are advocating for stop war. This war should be stopped. And they have different types of advocacy. Sometimes they are talking with influential actors within the European Union, within the state government in the USA, within the African Union, within the IGAD. So they have different types. They are using different techniques and different types of advocacy, linking up with a Sudanese civilian forces that they are looking for stopping war. So also there is a Sudanese Women Solidarity, and this is emerged from the Nairobi conferences, and this is composed of different activists. Some of them are living in Uganda, and this is also SAIHA have different gender equality focal points in different states in Sudan. They are working together, and also they are formulating different types and techniques for advocating for how to deal with the SGBV, how to link up with UN agencies like UN Women, UNICEF. Also, there is a committee formed by UN agencies, particularly UN Women, called GIHA, Gender and Humanitarian Activities, and this is looking for how to mainstream gender with all humanitarian work. And this is talking about the conflict area or the conflict zone like Sudan, Yemen, Iraq, is because it's for MENA region. So we have some, I myself am a member of this. I'm providing some information about Sudan. And this is also advocating among the UN systems how to mainstream gender within the humanitarian works, and how and to what extent that women can take place within the whole humanitarian actors. Because as I said before, humanitarian response is a conflict resolution. So when women start to link up with this humanitarian response, like what was happening now in Sudan and what has been done by this emergency room, so that woman is on the right track. So they will start. So when they start from this, so in the future, they will not be sidelined. They will not be left from peace process, whether this peace process started in Jeddah or started in anywhere. So women should be there. Women are preparing themselves. Women now are preparing themselves. This is a kind of the breakthrough that have been made by Women Against War and Sudanese Women's Solidarity. So they are preparing themselves to be ready and to avoid any past mistakes, not only to join the peace talks as women coming from ethnic group or representing a very minor group. No, we are representing the wide consensus of Sudanese women. This is why those initiatives they are now formulating and being ready to take part of any future process, peace process, whether peace process is a humanitarian process, whether it's a conflict resolutions, whether it's a peace talks, whether it is a whole process, as I said. So. This is some pictures from the meeting. This is in Kassala, an IDB shelter in Kassala. This is one of the IDBs shelter in Kassala. Kassala in the eastern part of Sudan. And Kassala now has became a very big, what we call it, they have like a very big IDBs shelters. We call it shelters because it's not actually camps. Shelters because within the schools, as I told you before, there is within the schools, within some houses and boarding houses and public building. So this is shelter Kassala because the people moved from Khartoum to Madani when the RSF attacked Madani. They moved to Kassala. Most of millions of the people moved to Kassala. So now Kassala is became like a big recipient centers for the women have been displaced from particular Khartoum and Jazeera. So the numbers of the report is not included the atrocities now are committing still in like 50 villages in Jazeera state. Now RSF going from village to village, terrorizing people, terrorizing the women, terrorizing women, and still loot all the golds, money, and this is now is going on. This attack is going on Jazeera. So because of this internet, so all atrocities, all the violations, or sexual incidents, that are not being reported. This is why. Next. This is in Al-Fashir. The women, they are reading this. No for war, no for hate speech, no for ethnic tension, no for, we need the support for the survivor. We need support for raped women. This is in Al-Fashir. It's the capital of northern Darfur state. I think I have to stop here. If there is any question, I'm ready. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you very much, Nina. That was very elaborate and comprehensive as well. Thank you for bringing the experience of our sisters from Sudan and all the investments and the agency amidst the struggles that is going on in the country, and also really bringing us up to the latest, development with the women's movement and all the activities that are still going on across the country. So at this point, I will call on our colleague from Ethiopia, Ms. Bethlehem, who is the program manager with the Ethiopian Women Lawyers Association. Bethlehem, you're most welcome. Kindly take on the floor, and we will give you about 5 to 7 minutes to really give us a reflection of the situation in Ethiopia and the women's organizing in the country to advance gender equality and an equitable future.
Hi everyone, how are you? We have been using a lot of time for one presentation, and when it comes to now, okay, I will try to briefly discuss about what's happening in Ethiopia currently, the current context. As you know, women in Ethiopia, women and girls in Ethiopia are. I don't have a good connection. Is it okay for you guys if I turn on my video?
It's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Please do. Yes.
Okay. 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 So women have been facing different. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, the conflict happening in different parts of the country. In the northern region, in Amhara region, there is still active conflict, and also there are conflict in different regions of the countries, and also there is a climate change and drought in different parts of the country, as well as there is economic instability. And these factors have disproportionately impacted women and girls and hinder progress towards a more equitable and inclusive society. For that, I will come back on how can we address and what EULA have been doing and other organizations similar to EULA have been doing. And we have in the process of transitional justice and national dialogue is already on progress. And within that process, women participation is very much critical in both processes. However, their participation have been facing different challenges from different angles. There are challenges for women in the social norms to engage effectively on the processes and discussions. Mostly the Ethiopian society is very much patriarchal, and women's role is considered to be more on in-house and societal role rather than engaging in different discussion and consultation. Most of these environments are usually dominated by men. So women engagement in the national dialogue is much more very limited. While there have been some efforts to include women, their representation in the national dialogue and in the transitional justice development process while the policy was being developed, but somehow these processes fall short of women's full participation. There are civil society efforts even to improve their involvement. If you are able to see most of the women's engagement in the mediation and some of the processes that's happening within the country, we can mention the negotiation between the TPLF party and the government, the Shane and the government, and other discussion and negotiation do not include women in that. And women rights organizations have been advocating for the increased quotas and increased participation in the platforms, but we didn't see much of a progress in that regard. Even the commission, the National Dialogue Commission, was facing different critics from women's rights organization, and the coalition was established with that regard, so that for effective engagement of women in the national dialogue process, in the women's rights group have been lobbying for greater representation. But some of these efforts have get good attention from the government and the commission itself, and the commission is now seeking for different representation of women from different situations. As you know, it's a bit fragmented movement and advocacy work within the country for the past years due to the law that have been restrict women organization to work on advocacy, and now the movement is trying to be, the women's rights organization is trying to be come together and trying to build a movement and foster a dialogue and collaboration within the women's organization as well as other stakeholders, so that to have a meaningful and effective representation of women in different aspects. For Ethiopian Women Lawyers Association, we have been working and engaging in advocacy and representation of women for inclusion in our different project works and our engagement. For that, we have been working on training and building the capacity of different women and community groups on the transitional justice mechanisms, the national dialogue processes, legal rights and advocacy skill. And also we have been educating women about their rights and working on legal literacy programs to women to know better about the legal framework surrounding the transitional justice and everything. In addition to that, we are trying to expand the reach of legal aid services for case documentation and preparation for the transitional justice process. So, but the documentation of human rights violence is abuse in the past conflict, in the conflicts that are happening right now is not that much and it's underway. So we are expanding our reaches to different communities that or geographical coverage to make the legal aid service more available for women, especially for those women who have been violated and lost their right and properties within the conflict process, those who have been sexually violated as well. So in addition to that, we have been working on building collaboration and networking. We are collaborating with other organizations and civil society groups and international actors to strengthen the advocacy efforts that we have been doing. And we are trying to facilitate the creation of network of women leaders to connect and share experience and support each other in participation in the national dialogue in transitional justice process. We were able to create a network from different sectors, from the business sector, from the government, from the political parties, and from the communities. So we have been trying to build a strong network of women in different sectors. And also we have been working closely with the government and try to build constructive dialogue with the government to ensure women meaningful participation in these processes. We were able to conduct different researches and able to provide a good recommendation for the decision makers to consider on putting in place a structure and the mechanism in addressing women meaningful participation in these processes. So overall, the situation in Ethiopia is a bit challenging currently, since many new things have been happening for the last 5 years, and conflict have been one of the future of or the characteristics of the situation in different parts of the country. So for that, we are trying to come up with a unique way of engaging different actors so that we will be able to serve women and build resilience in the movement. So maybe I may stop here, and my 5 minutes is already up. If there is anything, I will address it in the question and answer part.
All right. Thank you very much, Bethlehem. So from our online colleagues, there are questions, clarities that have been posted here. So from Monica, she's saying, what comes with a total breakdown of legal services? There's no access to justice. Is there any chance for repatriation? I guess this is a question for our sisters from Sudan. And we have here Tina. Would you repeat the economy of gender humanitarian work for MENA region you mentioned, please? Which is GHR, thank you. So I think this is for our colleague from Musawa, Rehema. And Jackie is saying that my name is Jackie, a member of the coalition FIDA Uganda. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this platform. We are faced with increasing cases of rape and defilement where access to medical services and legal have been compromised due to police inability to document the cases correctly, delayed and demand for medical fees for examination, and due to the lack of economic base for women and families. They can't access justice. What do we do? So this is a very fundamental question. As human rights defenders, as women rights activists, how can we improve access to justice? How can we work with duty bearers to ensure that there are system structures that can enable women access justice at the different structural levels? I bet these are questions that we'll be able to answer during our plenaries or questions and answers. So we still have one presentation from our colleague from FIDA, and this will be presented by Elizabeth Kimgisha. Elizabeth is the advocacy lead at Federation of Women Lawyers Association in Uganda, and she will be talking about the viability of investment in women's social organizing. So probably along her discussion, she may factor in some of these questions that have been asked, especially the one from Jacqueline. So Elizabeth, the floor is yours. You have about 10 to 7 minutes. And yes, thank you. Elizabeth, are you there? Hello, Elizabeth?
Yes, Susan, can you hear me?
All right.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go on.
Great. I don't know if you're able to see me. I'm opening my screen, but my video is not very good, so I will cut my video for a few minutes to be recognized, and then remove it just allow for me. Go ahead with the conversation without interrupting with my poor network. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you to Siha for coordinating us and for just making sure that there's this particular space today for us to reflect on how we are organizing, how we believe that women can be supported better, but also how to really strengthen resilience of African women that are responding to several socio-economic and political crises across the Eastern Horn of Africa. So my name is Elizabeth Kimgisha, like I've been introduced, and I do also organize and work with the team from the Uganda Association of Women Lawyers, which is a partner of the We Cannot Wait project here in Uganda. And our mandate, our broad mandate as an institution is provision of legal aid, but also undertaking advocacy on socio-economic and political issues, organizational capacity, but where mostly our WCWC, or We Cannot Wait program falls under the work that we do in organizing of women in responding to different socio-economic and political issues in their communities. Today, I'll be speaking about a subject that touches the broad subject on Women's Day, the broad thematic area on Women's Day, but linking it to the work that we are doing under We Cannot Wait project. And that is the viability of investment in women's social organizing. One of the core things that the program on We Cannot Wait has allowed for FIDA to do is to build movements, to build coalitions, to build cohorts of activists that are able to respond to different issues in communities. One, I'd like to say that this particular program, why we thought that this particular program would work in the areas where we're doing the work, but also on the progress of the work that we're doing, is for several reasons. But one that I know responds, that I know relates, not corresponds, relates to many other speakers that have spoken before me, but also to the other WCWC partners that may not have spoken, is the shrinkage of civic space, that it has become extremely challenging for different organizings in civil society, in CBOs, to organize and fight back on some of the impunity that we see that mostly affects the vulnerable groups in our communities, including women. That it's very easy for civil society organizations to be cracked down because you're registered, you pay taxes, you employ people. So it's very easy for your operations to get cracked down depending on what issue that you're pushing back on. And one of the things that social movements or coalitions or activists that we are working with have enabled us to do is to sort of build our resilience as an institution, but also resilience of communities where we work by organizing in those different spaces where they're doing the work. Why has it become extremely important for us to continue investing in women's social organizing is because of that reason and many more that I'll just highlight as I continue speaking. So because of the shrinkage on civic space, it has become important that communities are reminded, that communities are helped to recognize the power that they do have in responding to impunity and other issues that make it impossible for women to exist freely or for women's liberation in our communities. That women are able to recognize what their power is in telling other community members that we will not vote that person because they will not do ABC that we think is important to develop our communities. A lot of organizing in civil society organizations is limited, right? We do run 21 legal aid clinics in 21 districts, but still that is not enough. And we are not many institutions that are able to do this work in all those different districts, particularly here in Uganda. That we are only able to reach the last woman that we are able to reach because of these women activists that are organizing movements, that are reaching out to the last woman at the sub-county, at the parish level, for them to be able to recognize what they're able to do, how they can support activists through the work that they're doing. Secondly, to just also bring forth one of the advantages, or really one of the reasons why I think it's important that we continue investing in women's social movements, is because there is strength in numbers, right? More than ever, we cannot organize alone as FIDA or organize alone as Musawa, as the Ethiopian Association of Women Lawyers. We can no longer do that. We have to organize across borders, across districts, across tribes, across religions. Right, and that's only possible through social movements. And these have been tried and tested by many feminists, by many activists, human rights defenders in other countries, that it's only possible when you have numbers. Some of these things are possible when you do have the numbers to back you up to say, this thing is actually not working. Thirdly, also in terms of why it continues to be important and why we have seen it important to continue to invest in social movements is because of the way social movements are set up in especially many of the upcountry districts where we do work under the We Cannot Wait program, is that they give space, if I could use the word give, is that they create platforms for women to be able to meaningfully participate in social economic issues, in political issues that they're originally not able to participate in through, say, NGOs for different reasons, right? So there are many ways in which communities are, for example, organizing to respond to issues of defilement. We have districts which go through their district leaders, for example, to say defilement is an issue that has continued, that has persisted in this district, and we are calling upon the local government to do ABC. But we have also seen that such structures usually either omit to create spaces for women to operate, or that the spaces are set up in patriarchal systems that make it difficult for women to pick up that mic and speak, to be able to front or to bring forth their issues. I'll give an example. In one of the districts where we work in Pade, that's supported by this project, you'll find that there are meetings that happen, budget planning meetings that happen at the local government level. And usually the proceedings are had in English, right? Because it's the government language. It's the official communicating language. However, we found that many of the women activists in the coalition in Pade could not express themselves in English. Meanwhile, one of the things that they were supposed to follow up on is to ensure that they lobby the district heads to provide a budget for some of the health centers that were struggling, but also to continue following up through these meetings that we could also call accountability forums for local government and its performance on women's rights and other broad human rights issues. So the women were able to lobby through support of FIDA to allow for these women to speak in these meetings in the local language that they are able to organize. The coalition sat and wrote in the local language a letter to the speaker of this committee to say, we do have issues that we would like to raise, to bring forth, but we cannot speak English. We've been accepted, which is the first step, to come and sit in these meetings, to monitor, and also use these spaces where we can ask questions, but you cannot speak in a local language, so we cannot communicate properly, even when we have issues. And the speaker at first responded and said, we usually do allow for people to speak in local languages if beforehand, before the meeting goes ahead, you request in writing. But how many women are able to write? What if FIDA was not available to provide the technical support to help them to write to the speaker? So through their coalition, through this movement of women in Pade, they were able to rise to the occasion and go to the speaker with their letter to say, we are able to communicate in our local language, and these are our issues that we are able to do. And because it wasn't one woman standing up to do this, there were several of them. Even those that were not allowed in the room were outside, and there was they were able to see that there are so many of women like this that would like to participate in these meetings, that would like to share proposals and recommendations. And we were thereby able to see once more some of the reasons why we continue to invest in social movements. I know that my time is almost over, so I'll use my next few minutes to highlight two issues on the viability of investment in social movements. A lot of the things that we're addressing through social movements also touch sticky matters, and I know Rehema spoke about their interface with religion and how women are either getting supported to be able to push for legislation that is gender responsive or that responds to the unique needs of women that they may be facing in their different communities. Also, part of the issues that we are trying to address through social movements is uprooting cultural norms that are progressive, that are discriminatory to women and children and other groups in communities. And part of uprooting those is a long process that we may never be able to do at project level. That after the 5 years when the We Cannot Wait program, God forbid, ends, and then what? If we do not have a rooting in communities that will continue to do this work. So social movements continue to root us, if I could say, to deepen our roots in communities, that we are able to address these long-term historical patriarchal issues that may not get addressed through the programming that we do in the different projects, as CSOs or as NGOs in the different spaces. Then lastly, but not in any way least, one of the things that social movements also build is sisterhood, brotherhood in communities, but also togetherness in communities that sometimes as NGOs we may not have in our indicators, right? So when I'm sending my report to Susan at the end of the quarter, there may not be questions about, for example, how were you present for these communities outside what the indicators of the project speak to. But with social movements that we are able to invest in through this project, we are able to see that we are building a critical mass that is not just responding to impunity, that is not lobbying for gender responsive legislation only, but is able to stand with each other. Many times you see on their WhatsApp group, for example, say so-and-so lost a daughter. Maybe two of us should go and visit. So-and-so is dealing with this. Can two of us make time over the weekend to go and visit? That's not part of my, for example, budget from this project, right? To say, can we have Susan, can we have Rehema, for example, make time and go and visit Hala, who is not well and is part of the movement. So through building social movements, we are also able to sort of tie in those knots, sort of have that solidarity that goes away from responding to only political and economic issues, but also responding to issues of humanity, of togetherness, and of responding to other issues that we may never see in many of our proposals that we sent to the different donors. So short time and in many words, but I thought that from FIDA would share the viability of consistent, deliberate investment in these social movements that we are building through the We Cannot Wait project. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so much, Rehema. Thank you so much to everyone that has spoken and to the team at SIHA for really creating this platform for sharing and reflecting on how we are doing as a movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, everyone. So in the interest of time, I will open up the floor to hear from our colleagues who may be having any questions, who may be having any contributions towards what has been said by our panelists. So the floor is really open. And maybe as we begin the plenary discussions, we could refer to some of the questions that have been asked here. I think this question from Tina is not specific whether to Misawa or our colleagues in Sudan, but any of you could answer this, where she requested for the abbreviation. Sure.
It's Jihad, Gender and Humanitarian Action.
I can see it has been answered already. All right, thank you very much, Tina. So any contribution, any questions, any clarities? All right. And in your discussion, Elizabeth, I saw you factored in the question from Jacqueline, who asked about what we can do to improve on access to justice, looking at delays, demand for medical fees, for examination, and also the lack of economic basis for women and the family to cope with such demands amidst the vulnerability that they find themselves in. All right. So if we do not have any, okay. So we are really, Mike, anyone who has any contribution, who has any question, please go ahead.
I wanted to pose a question.
Or even our panelists, if you have anything that you had not concluded, this is an opportune moment. We have about 7 minutes to go.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Wanted to say something?
Yes. Can you hear me? You do? Okay, thank you. I think I was curious to pose this question to
All right. So we seem to have exhaustively reflected on this particular on our topic for today as we celebrate International Women's Day, invest in women, accelerate progress, and any question? Okay, just all right. So these are basically repeated contributions from Jacqueline. Okay. One more message. I wanted to hear of any thoughts around lessons we are learning as we work in movements. Okay, this is an open question. I do not know why you can't hear me. This is Rehema. Rehema is having issues with. Sorry, our network seems to be down.
Can you confirm if you can hear us?
Can you hear us, sir?
I can hear you, Susan. Sandra, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, but I think Rahima from Musawashi was speaking.
And we couldn't hear her, yeah.
Oh, we can't hear you.
I cannot hear.
I think the problem is with her connection, Susan, because I can hear you. I think it's Rahima's connection.
Okay. This is just wondering if Sarah can hear us. Sarah, can you hear us? All right, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, Rehema, I think the issue could be coming from your side. But as you pose the question here, that I want to hear of any thoughts around lessons we are learning as we work in this movement. Anyone who can share? Yes. Sarah, could you unmute Nina?
Me? You hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think this is very good question of the lessons learned of this movement. As this movement is a regional movement, one of the biggest lessons learned is that I'm here appreciating what Saiha was doing since 1995 is regionalizing the issues. As soon as we regionalize the issue, so we can get more strong advocacy. The issues that we need to have like a regional solidarity is the issue of the linking up of the women with the peace, with the whole peace process. The second is the combating SGBV it should be also tackled as a regional issue. Economic structure or economic issue also should be tackled at this regional issue, at regional issues, because when we tackle, and this we have great lessons when we tackle the issue of the FGM as a regional, so we have like a great impact, unlike when we tackle it only at the national level, because for the regional level this might bring attention of our leaders themselves and attention of international organization to contact or to be part of this. So for peace process, it should be tackled at the regional, and it's a high time. Take the case of the Sudan. It's a high time is to have this regional solidarity for our current issues or for our current involvement, because then I'm talking about the new initiatives that can create a new models of women that looking for the past failure or looking for the past experiences, and then want to move on from this past experience and to have a new one. And I gave the model of a new young women's initiatives when they are linking up with the conflict resolution, and they have now on the right tracks and making like penetration, making like breakthrough. So we need regional. So we need to hear the voice of women from Kenya, from Uganda, from how to deal and to talk with the women how to deal with the peace issues and peace process issues. The second one is this economic structure, okay, because now the whole economy in the whole world now are suffering this like what we call it Great Depression or what we call it. So women everywhere now they are suffering. They are suffering because of the high rate of the foreign debt, because of the distorted macroeconomic policies that followed by our government, because of the handling the issue of safety networks away from the women engagement or from women experience. This is why look at the public budget for our country. So it doesn't reflect the concerns of the people and women particularly. So this is the issues that we need to tackle it as a regional issue for the advocacy, so we can push it more and we can give it big push, since we can tackle it as a regional issue, because at that time we can find the solidarity of other women for like in the Horn of Africa. And this is the things that Sayha are doing for this. Why when we link with the Somali, so I became to know more about what the Somali working for, what the Ethiopian women doing, what Ewla was doing or is doing. So this is the kind things that we need great push to have advocacy at regional level. And thank you.
From Siha, our experience has been that as we work together, as we continue to build the movement, of course we see solidarity really improving, as my sister just said. When South Sudan ratified the Maputo Protocol, it was not an effort of the South Sudanese women alone. It was an effort of women across the region that have culminated into the success. There were several meetings that the women had organized with the African Union, the women had organized with IGAD, there were demonstrations that the women had organized. And when South Sudan finally signed the protocol, it blossomed all these activism that had been put into place. And now our effort is to see that there's accountability, there's structure, there's system in South Sudan, so that they can begin to realize the benefit of the protocol. We saw how our sisters from other countries shared during for example, the Solidarity Week that we had. They shared their experiences of how they continue to advocate with the different government structures to see that the commitments within Maputo and other conventions that do focus on women's rights and gender equality are actually sourced locally, but also at regional level. So there's a lot that we have learned from that, working as a movement, working as sisters. The other lesson we have learned is that as we work in solidarity, we have been able to, to build a data bank of information, a data bank of expertise, a data bank of channels of communication and access within the different regions. There are women networks, women groups that have been established by partners who are part of this WCW program, but also other programs that have been implemented by SIHA. And whenever we go to Somaliland and we meet the women, they're very joyous to see us because, they're part of the bigger collective, they're part of the bigger movement, and the information that has been shared across the region has benefited them to still remain, firm, remain resilient in their advocacy, in their effort. So it's quite a lesson that we have learned in this particular in the movement building or working together as a movement. The broader influence is something we cannot underestimate. Because of the collective, we have learned that as we work together, we actually influence broadly. We are able to gain access to spaces that had predominantly been closed to women. We have been able to access to information that we couldn't access before. So, and that has enabled us really to have a lot of influence with the different systems and structures that make the decisions on some of the parameters of human rights, the parameters of gender equality, of economic access, and also participation in decision making. So we have learned a lot in these areas and in this platform. So, and also coordinating the different networks at the different country levels within the different regions has really has exposure, and these are exposures that come with solidarity. These are exposures that come with backup in terms of sharing risks, sharing opportunity costs that strengthen the movement and enable us to build also the intergenerational group of young women that we foresee taking on the mantle of advocacy and gender equality. I have a hand here from Jacqueline. Jacqueline, please speak. The floor is yours.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes, just a few.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Shiha and all the partners for organizing such a platform. And I want also to thank so much FIDA Uganda for including us among the women rights organizations that are also part of the coalition and running with the agenda of the We Cannot Wait. As you've seen some of the questions I've raised there, as a coalition and women-led organizations, we have been able to do a lot of things. But our challenges come in line with the government structures in place, where the police actually that we have already for specifically Gulu districts in Uganda, we have got challenges that the police that are stationed to be able to collect in cases or to kind of record cases of GBV are not qualified. they are not really trained police officers that are supposed to take up those spaces. And because of that, we find that the cases that are supposed to receive justice end up just within the police posts, and they cannot go further. Reason being, you find that the cases are missing some important information that cannot be cannot hold the case. And two, you find that there are lots of negotiations around. For example, last month, we were really advocating for some 2 police officers who released certain suspects who had defiled, actually raped a young lady, gang rape, and they decided to free those suspects. And then because of our advocacy, they had to arrest the police officers and they have been charged right now. So those loopholes are still hindering a lot of things that we are doing. But also way forward on that, I would like to tell you that we have gone ahead to work together with other development partners to ensure that we collect some funding, and then we do capacity building for the for the police officers to be able to fill those police forms very well, and also to ensure that they also get to know aspects of GBV that they are working on. Because when we got into discussions with their bosses, they told us clearly that these officers who are there at the police post were recruited during the time of militias who were operating that side of Karamoja, trying to protect the community through cattle rustling. And they are the ones that have been brought and they are working. They even don't know what GBV is all about. So we have a lot to do there as the women-led organization through with other CSOs, and that possibly we will see it coming to pass. Then on the other side, we are also working hand in hand with the cultural institutions to ensure that our women have access to land, our women are able to take some decisions regarding their properties, regarding land and the rest of the things. Because we are seeing a lot of land cases that are kind of emancipating in terms of GBV. Yes, you find that this land issue has caused GBV here. You are addressing GBV, but you find that it is coming from land issues. So it is taking a different shape altogether that we need to see that we approach these cases holistically. We may not deal with the survivor alone, but we've got to deal with the family also, and also ensure that we tackle many other issues that are rising there. I would like to appreciate the aspect that you are bringing different countries, different partners, different experiences together to let us also learn from the different areas and what the different partners are doing. For me, this is a plus, and it is a very good opportunity to also learn. And since this has come in handy, we are, as Gulu, we are going to celebrate the International Women's Day on the 13th and 15th concurrently this month. And so for me, being one of the partners that is going to MC the whole program, I think it will also give us an opportunity for the coalition to slot in and also talk about some of these issues that are affecting us, for other community groups also to know and come out and join the coalition so that we work together as a team. Because like just others, the presenters have also said, it works best when we are many and when our voices are huge and we work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jackie. That was really, really very practical. Your experience as a coalition in Gulu, and so are the challenges as well. And I believe these are the core issues that WCW initially was grounded on, and we still continue to, to ground our actions on, because many of these issues do not end, with one action.
Thank you.
Any of these social issues do not end with one action, or a few group of women working together. But if we recollect and reinforce our effort as a movement and create a critical mass, then we'll be able to, confront the duty bearers, we'll be able to confront the policy makers, we'll be able to even confront the perpetrators who are at the front of these abuses on women and girls. So thank you very much. I wonder if there's any more contribution from anyone.